Hi and welcome to this Unity Android game development tutorial series brought to you by the Fraser Coast Council. This tutorial series builds upon the skills learned from our first tutorial series, so if you have little to no experience with Unity development and C# programming, then I recommend completing that one first, as this series will skim over some of the fundamental aspects of developing with Unity. To watch the first tutorial series, see the link to the playlist in the description of this video. In this tutorial series you will learn how to create the Android mobile game that you see here. The game involves a simple and fun mechanic that makes great use of mobile input. As the game involves the progression of many levels, the game will keep track of the highest level that the player has completed and will allow the player to continue from where they left off even after closing the app and then playing again later. Much like the previous tutorial series, it shares many common aspects of Unity development including physics, colliders, user input prefabs, and UI, but will focus more on creating a polished and visually appealing game with responsive and intuitive controls. I will also show you how to set up Unity Remote 5, which allows you to conveniently test your game on your phone directly from the editor, as well as how to create your own Android APK which you can install and run on your phone. In part 1 of this tutorial series, we will go through the setting up of our burger model and physics. For this tutorial, we will be using Unity version 2019.4.0F1. Because we will be building our game for the Android platform, we will need to make sure that we have the necessary modules installed. So for your version of Unity that is installed, you click on these three dots and click Add Modules. I've already installed the necessary modules, but you want to make sure to tick Android Build Support and expand the menu, and then make sure you tick both of these, Android SDK and NDK Tools and Open JDK. And after you've finished installing those modules, you can go to Project, and you can say, we can create our new project. We're just going to go with 3D, and we can call our project Sliders, because we will be sliding a hamburger, but a slider or sliders or a slider is essentially a small hamburger. So you could call it, sliding sliders or slippery sliders, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it sliders. And make sure we just got the 3D template selected. Now that your project has initialized, we're going to create a couple folders because we're going to bring some assets in. So we'll create a new folder called Models, and a new folder called Sprites. Now in Google, you want to search up Kenny Game Assets and go to this site. And here there are a bunch of free assets that you can use with no copyright or anything like that. And the three asset packs that we'll be using, well, first of all, will be the 3D food kit. And from this food kit, we only need one particular model, but we're going to have to download the whole pack. So just click download. And then from assets, we want to select UI. And we want a game icons pack. You can download that. And then we want the UI pack. Hit download here. Now, once all of those have finished downloading, we'll go back to our project. And if you want your layout to be the way you want it, you can just go Window, Layout, Default. There we go. And we'll go to, and we'll just go to these downloads. We'll first start off by extracting our food kit. And we want to go to Models, FBX format. And so the model we want is the burger model. So with our project open, let's drag our burger model in. There we have. There it is. And now we can actually delete everything except the icons and UI pack. Now for our, and actually what we'll do is we will import these assets later. But for now, we have our burger. So the first step we can take is to start setting up our burger. Start off by dragging our burger into the scene. And with the burger selected, press F to view it. Something we'll just quickly get out of the way is we will just set up our lighting and set it to auto generate. Now you may notice this slight kind of blue tinge to everything, and this might possibly, I think it might be a bit of a bug with the lighting. And somehow I managed to fix it before, and but I wasn't sure if that was the proper fix. But if you go into your light settings and you change your compression to compressed, then you'll notice that the effect will go away. But then, yeah, or uncompressed or compressed. But on auto, it seems to create this blue sort of tinge. I'm not sure if it's to do with this intensity multiplier or something like that. But yeah, I would suggest setting the compression to compressed. It should be fine like that. I haven't noticed any issues. So the first thing we have to do is we have to fix this burger, and this is more of a personal preference, but see, I prefer my lettuce to be between the tomato and the top bun. Otherwise, what happens is that the top bun gets all soggy from the tomato, juices, and no one wants a soggy burger. So let's fix that. Just purely for aesthetics, I suppose. And I think we could do with a juicier tomato slab. I like having the thick tomato slices. So let's make our tomato piece a little bit thicker, and let's make our salad a little bit more, I don't know how you would say it, but just more salad. So I'll duplicate our salad, make it a child of the other salad that we just duplicated from, and then on the Y we want to rotate by 45 degrees. And if you wanted to, you could even scale it up a bit as well. And let's view this from the side. Yeah. Can even make our cheese a bit longer. We can make our beef a bit beefier. And I would say that's looking pretty good. And we'll just order our hierarchy here for our toppings, just so it's easier for us to keep track of where they all are. So our bun bottom is at the bottom. So we'll just have to unpack this prefab to be able to make changes to it. Or, you know, unless you want to open up the prefab and edit it that way, but let's just unpack prefab completely for now. And let's, okay, so our cheese needs to go like that. And then our bun bottom should be down here. This is just purely for, you know, just so it's all organized and that. And then our patty should be on top of the bun, like there. Then our cheese, we want our cheese sitting on top. Then our tomato, actually our cheese should be under our tomato. And then tomato can come down. Yep. And then our salad like that. And then our bun top can just sit on top like that, I suppose. You could even move the lettuce. Oh. Or salad can come down slightly. That's fine. Yeah, something like that. See, that looks like a more, that looks like a much, not like a much tastier burger, in my opinion. In fact, I think that this bottom bun could be a bit thicker as well. In fact, actually, let's scale it in all directions slightly. Oh, actually, just ever so slightly, and then a bit more in the, slightly bit more in the Y scale. There we go. That's a juicy burger. Okay, so in terms of the physics of our burger, we want our burger to be able to slide on a surface, and we want all of the toppings or fillings to be able to move independently within the burger to kind of create a comical effect when the burger falls off the edge or bumps around and jumps around and all that kind of stuff. But we don't want the fillings to just be completely lost and go everywhere. We're going to use a little bit of a trick to be able to make our burger act in a very predictable way while still having some kind of flexibility in our approach to making the toppings move around. So I'll show you what I mean. So for our burger, we'll start off with a rigid body. And we're going to use a Capsule Collider. And the reason why we're using a Capsule Collider rather than, say, a cube is because a Capsule Collider has soft edges, which will prevent it from catching on any edges or seams, but also prevent it from, or just make it smoother transition if it hits angles and such. So we'll need to make our Capsule Collider fit our burger shape a bit better. So we'll start by setting the radius to 0.145 and our height to 0.4. And then, see, right now we have a capsule that's kind of going sort of up, but we want the capsule to be kind of more so on its side. So to do that, we can change the direction to x-axis, and then we'll just need to set, because see it's sinking a little bit below, we can then set the center y to 0.15. In fact, actually, rather than setting that to 0.15, if you wanted to, actually, well, it really depends on, I mean, it doesn't matter too much, but you could either move all of the toppings further down on the burger, or you can do different things. But I think the clearest way to do it is take our bun bottom and just make sure its position on the Y is set exactly to 0. And then just make sure, I'm just tapping F to do that, to focus on the object. And then I think what we can just do is just make sure that our Capsule Collider just kind of lines up perfectly with the bottom of that. So if we just set our Y position the same as our radius, 0.145, it should line up perfectly with the base of our burger, the burger bottom. So now, just with that as it is, we will have a physics object, and all of the fillings will follow our burger. So if I just create a 3D cube, just move that down a bit. You can even, that's all fine. Set our Z to 0, so it lines up with our burger. Just make it a bit bigger. And let's get our main camera, game object, align with view. You can see there, and now if we drop our burger, there, our burger just sits down like that. But the only thing is all of our burger pieces, all the fillings, they are not very, well, they're very static. They're not very dynamic. So to do that, we're going to go and add rigid bodies and colliders to each and every one of these toppings. So open up our burger and basically select everything except the burger bottom. We'll just move these up. And for our bun bottom, we want this to act as a static base for all of our fillings or toppings. I think we can just call it, I don't know what's the best word. I suppose they're kind of like toppings if you're including the bun top. These are, yeah, like the beef and the patty, the cheese and the tomato and the salad, they're all fillings. But the bun top is a topping. So I suppose if we want to include all of them in one category, they would be toppings. So let's just call them toppings. So for our bun bottom, we just want to add a simple box collider. and it will automatically size that to fit. And you know what, I might actually make our bun bottom a little bit thicker again. Set the Y position to 0. Yep, it's all good. And let's move on to the patty first. Let's just go into isometric here and bring our patty down. So we'll add a box collider and a rigid body, and we'll enter in all this all these other details later. Now for our cheese, thing is our cheese is very thin, but let's just add our rigid body and box collider. Now the thing is, if we leave our box collider like that, the cheese is not going to sit flush with the patty, which is kind of what you want. So we can't. We'll need our collider to be thinner, but if your collider is too thin, it can make the collision detection difficult, and then the cheese can end up just passing right through the patty and out the burger, and off it goes. So we'll set our size to 0.01, and then it's not perfectly aligned. There we go. And then we want the bottom of our collider to basically just about line up. So when it comes to the Y center, we want it to be just slightly above slightly below the top of the cheese. So 0.03, 1, maybe 4, 5, maybe 0.4. Yeah, 4, 3. Yep, that looks good. Yep, that's fine. And now for our tomato, let's make our, actually, you know what, let's make all these things a little bit thicker again. The thing is that by making our toppings thicker, we essentially, less chance for any issues with the collision detection. So we'll add a box collider, rigid body. I'll move this, go back into perfectly side on, salad, rigid body. Yeah, that's okay for box collider, I think. That's a good enough size. And then our bun, box collider, rigid body. So now what should happen, hold on, just try not to select the other salad. Okay, so what should normally happen, well, not normally yet, but what we're trying to make happen is that all of these pieces will then basically use physics to fall and then stack on top of each other. But the current issue is that we have this big capsule collider that we're using as a collider for our whole burger. And we want our toppings to only collide with this bun bottom and nothing else. And we want our burger capsule collider to only collide with the surface that it is sliding on. So for this, we're going to need to use layers to prevent these from colliding with each other and only colliding with specific things. With all of our toppings, including the bun bottom, selected, we're going to add layer. Actually, we might have to assign that in a second, but we're going to create a layer called toppings. And then let's just go and select all of that and assign it the layer of toppings. Sure. It's just asking that because salad has that child, but salad doesn't have any collide. That salad child doesn't have any colliders, so it doesn't matter. But that's fine. Whatever. And then for our burger, let's add a layer, and then let's call it slider. Now these layers are case sensitive and all of that if you're checking things in code and whatever. So burger slider. Now for this you don't want to change children, because that's going to then go and apply the slider layer property to all of our toppings, which you don't want. We only want to apply that to the burger. So no, this object only. You can see now all these still have the layer toppings. Now just as an example, I'll just show you how it's going to look if we don't sort out the whole layer issue. Yeah, so you could see just for a second there that all the toppings are unable to pass through the sphere collider of our burger. But now, if we go into project settings, and then into the physics tab, we can go down to here, our collision matrix, and we look at our toppings layer, and we want toppings to basically not collide with anything other than other toppings. And we want slider to collide with basically everything except, yeah, toppings, like that. But toppings is with toppings. That's what we want. So Control S to save. Now if we play this, they all kind of stack on top of each other. Now we need to make sure that all of our toppings are going to stay on top of each other and not fall off like you saw there. So with all of our toppings selected, excluding the bun bottom, because this is going to be in reference to the rigid body, which the bun bottom doesn't have, we want to constrain the so the X position and the Z position. So we don't want our toppings moving this way or that way, but we're okay with our toppings moving up and down, which is why we leave Y unchecked. And in terms of rotation, we don't want our toppings to rotate this way, so we will freeze X. We don't want our toppings rotating this way, and there's no real even any kind of benefit to that visually, but it's okay for our toppings to kind of move this way, because that's an actual provides like visual kind of feedback there, and it's a simple axis. So we'll leave Z unticked. If we had all the rotations unticked, it could just get a bit funny and a bit strange when you have all these toppings interacting with each other and all turning in different angles, and it can just get a little bit out of hand. So now that is sorted out, if we now hit play, look at our burger, you can see it's all stacked up on top of each other. The only thing you might notice is that despite us freezing the position of the toppings have not been frozen properly. So we can do a quick little fix for that. And the way that we are going to do that is by creating a script. And we're going to need this script later as well for other implementations, but let's start by creating a folder, and we'll call that folder scripts, and we'll create a C# script called burger controller, and then let's go and attach that to our burger and edit. So what we'll be calling is from late update, we are going to go through each topping, and we're going to set the position of that, kind of hard set it, just to kind of correct it. So we'll need a public transform, we can call this public transform, we want an array, and call that toppings. And then we're just going to simply create a for each loop going through each item in our toppings. And we're going to say the item dot local position. So we want, because we're going to basically just set the X and Z position values of each topping to 0. And 0 is going to be the local position. The global position could be, it's arbitrary, it could be anything, depending on where the burger is in the world. But we know that the 0 will always be, relative to the actual position of the parent burger object. So we want to set our local position, and we want to say local position equals vector3 dot scale. So scale is how you multiply the two vectors, because we're basically going to take the item local position, and we're just going to multiply that by vector3 dot up, because vector3 dot up has a value of 0 in the x, 1 in the y, and 0 in the z. And so we're basically just taking their local position and then multiplying the x and z by 0, which will always be 0, and then the y by 1, which means it will just retain its value. So this is a great way to just basically set all of its other property, its x and z, to 0, while keeping its y the same. And then what we'll just have to do is this will appear here in our inspector. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toppings, not 50, 5. And we'll just go in and drag them all in. And patty, there we go. Now, if we give that a run, even looking at our burger top position, oh, okay, it seems like our bun top position is not centered. Actually, that might have been why it's not centered, but it can still it can still happen that the despite freezing it, they can still become slightly misaligned. And then what can happen is that once the burger's misaligned, it becomes unstable, and then it has some kind of funny behavior. But this is going to guarantee that our toppings will always have X and Z of 0 no matter what. And because we're doing it in the late update, it's not going to interfere with any of the physics calculations. Now, despite making our our colliders thicker and all that kind of stuff, it is still possible for our toppings to kind of get a bit confused about where they should be and then slip through each other. So to help prevent that from happening, we can then just select all of our toppings and set our collision detection to continuous dynamic, and set our burger, which actually should be by default, make sure it's discrete. Another thing that we can do to kind of just make our burger a bit more stable is by making each topping that sits on top of the other one lighter than the previous, than the one below it, so that you're not having, the burger isn't too top heavy and ends up falling over or end up squashing each other and once again kind of messing up the physics. So we'll start off by giving our burger a mass of 2, and then give our patty a mass of 0.5, and then with each of the toppings above it, 0.1 less, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, and then with the bun top, 0.1. And that will just basically, make the burger more stable, less top heavy and all of that. And just as a more fun kind of effect, I think it's a cool kind of effect if each topping kind of, when the burger falls, that each topping sort of floats almost in a kind of cascading sort of effect. Or maybe not cascading, but like a delayed sort of effect. So if we look at our burger now, if we just set up our main camera, we'll see our burger fall. Might need to make our burger a bit taller. Not taller, I mean higher. Up. Now, when we watch our burger fall, yeah, that's not too bad. That's pretty good. But what we can do is we can kind of emphasize that effect. So we'll keep our burger with a drag of 0, and then for each topping we will increase the drag. Sorry, starting with patty. We will increase the drag by 0.2 for each topping. So patty 0.2, cheese 0.4, tomato 0.6, salad 0.8, and then bun top, the drag of 1. So now you'll have an even more kind of pronounced effect as the toppings fall. They gain more space because each topping is lighter and also has more drag. It's going to take longer to fall than the one below it. The camera angle doesn't really do it justice, but once we set up the camera angle and everything, then I think it's going to be looking a lot nicer. So, as a matter of fact, let's just quickly set up our camera at the angle that is going to be for the final kind of game, just so you get that out of the way. So we're going to be using a orthographic camera, and we'll set the size to 1.6, which kind of just makes it more zoomed in. 1.6, and then we want it to be like pretty much side on, but just like with a little bit of depth slightly to it. So make sure all of this is zeroed off, and we'll just have just 3 degrees kind of looking down, so that it's kind of hard to see because of the lighting, but there's a slight sort of like lip here at the top, which kind of shows the surface. And then what we can do is we can then just emphasize, create some contrast here. And for our directional light, we're going to set the Y rotation to 90 and our Z rotation to 90. And our X rotation to 65. And then we'll just bring down the strength of our shadows a bit. And we'll bring our intensity down to something like 0.3. And then we'll go to our lighting settings. We'll change our source from skybox to solid color. And then for our color, we can choose just pure white. And that's going to give us that contrasting sort of effect. So let's now hit play and see how that looks when our burger falls. There we go. That looks pretty good to me.